Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spill the Pea. This week, we're diving into Parsha Mikeitz. So, first, we're going to have our summary, Bishat, and then we're going to head into the deeper understanding. So, we open with Torah letting us know that exactly 2 years later, after Yoseph interpreted the dreams for the Pharaoh's workers, the Pharaoh himself was having a couple of dreams. He was standing over the river, and 7 beautiful fat cows came from the water and were grazing. Then a second set of 7 cows comes out of the water, except these cows were ugly and emaciated. And then the ugly, emaciated cows ate the beautiful fat cows. And then he wakes up. So he falls asleep again, and this time he dreams of 7 ears of grain, good and healthy, and a second set of 7 ears of grain, thin and scorched by the east wind, were there also. And again, the thin and scorched swallowed up the good and healthy. And then it's the morning, he's annoyed, so he beckons some necromancers and wise men. He tells them the dreams, and absolutely no one was able to interpret the dreams. So one of the men who had been imprisoned with Yoseph approached the Pharaoh and was like, "Hey, listen, remember when you got mad at me and the other guy and you threw us in prison? Well, we had dreams while we were there, and there was this young Hebrew slave there, and we told him the dreams, and literally everything that he interpreted from the dreams happened." So Pharaoh, of course, was like, "Yalla, bring him." So they rushed to get Yosef, they shaved him, showered him, and made him presentable to be in front of the Pharaoh. So they meet, and Pharaoh is like, "Well, I have these dreams, and no one can figure them out, but I was told that you are the guy for the job." So Yosef's response was, "This is beyond me, and it is God who will respond with your welfare." So Pharaoh explained to him the dreams, telling him about the bank of the river and the fat cows and the skinny cows, and how the skinny cows ate the fat cows. And then the Pharaoh says, "I've never seen inferiority like theirs in the land of Egypt. When the emaciated cows ate the fat ones, it didn't look as though they ate them because their appearance remained as inferior as it always had been." Pharaoh then explains the second dream, the 7 ears of grain that were full and good, and then the 7 ears of grain that were withered and thinned and scorched by the east winds, and how they overgrew the healthy grains. But he told him that, none of the necromancers had any idea what's going on here. So Yosef explains to the Pharaoh the dreams, and that they are both one and the same, communicating the same message. The 7 good cows and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The 7 emaciated cows and the 7 emaciated ears are also 7 years. But these years would be years of famine. However, before that, the 7 good years were great abundance that was coming. But when the years of famine come, they will erase all of the abundance before it, and it will be severe. And he told the Pharaoh, "You received the dreams twice because the matter is before God, and he's like ready to get things rolling." So Yosef tells Pharaoh, "Find a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of Egypt. This guy will prepare the land during the years of abundance, gathering and amassing and safeguarding everything that we'll need. And then this food will be the reserves for the years of the famine so that the land wouldn't perish." So Pharaoh was like, "Well, obviously you're the guy for the job because you carry the Spirit of God. If God trusted you with all of this information, there's no one more discerning or wise than you. So you're the one who's going to be in charge of everything, and I will only outrank you because of the throne." So then the Pharaoh takes off his ring and he places it on Yosef's hand. He clothes him in linen and gives him a gold chain. And then he gives Yosef a ride in his royal chariot. And Pharaoh tells Yosef, I am Pharaoh, but without you, no man may lift his hand or his foot in the land of Egypt. And he called Yosef Zephanath Paneah and gave him a wife named Asenath. Yosef was 30 years of age when all of this happened. We're told that he left the Pharaoh's presence and he passed through the entire land of Egypt. So then, during the first 7 years, the earth produced abundance by the handfuls. And he was saving food in the cities and the fields, and he amassed as much grain as the sand of the sea. And they couldn't even count how much it is that they had. So now Yosef has two sons just before the famine years. The first son is named Manasseh, and the second is named Ephraim. So the abundant years were ending, and the famine years were upon them. And so then there happened to be the famine in all the land. But in Egypt, there was bread, there was sustenance. So eventually, everyone in Egypt started getting hungry, and they went to the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh was like, why are you looking at me? Go see Yosef. So Yosef opened all of the containers and the reserves, and he started selling everything to both the inhabitants of Egypt and also other people around the earth. So now we go to Yaakov, Yosef's father. He knew that there were provisions in Egypt, and so he says to his sons, why do you make yourselves so conspicuous? I heard there are provisions in Egypt, so go, buy some stuff so that we can live. So 10 of Yosef's brothers went to Egypt, but not Benjamin. So Yosef, he was the viceroy of the land. Viceroy is basically like an appointed ruler. So Yosef's brothers came to him and they bowed down. And Yosef saw them and he recognized them, but he just decided to act like they were strangers and he was a little bit mean to them. So he first asked them where they were from, and he recognized them, but they didn't recognize him. And then Yosef remembered all of the dreams that he had about them when he was young. And he accused them of being spies and just showing up in Egypt because they wanted to see exactly how bad things were. And they were like, dude, no way. We're just all sons of the same guy and we're honest people and we've never been spies. And Yosef was like, no, you guys came to see how bad things are here. And the brothers are like, no, we're your servants. We are 12 brothers. Our youngest is with our father, and the other one is gone. So then Yosef was like, nah, I'm pretty sure you're spies. So here's a test. You're not leaving here unless your youngest brother also comes. So pick one of you to go and get him, and the rest of you are going to stay here in prison. And then he tossed them all into prison for 3 days. So then Yosef says, do this and live. I fear God. If you're honest people, one of you will stay imprisoned, and the rest of you will take provisions to your household, and then you'll bring your youngest brother back to me so that I can validate all of the information, and then you won't die. So they started talking amongst each other, and they were saying to themselves, we definitely have a lot of guilt about our brother because when we saw his anguish and he pleaded with us, we didn't care. And so that's now why we have this anguish. So, of course, Reuben was like, told you so. I told you all not to do this to Yosef, but you didn't listen. And now his blood is being avenged. They had absolutely no idea that Yosef understood what was going on between them. So he turned away and he wept. He turned back and then he took Simeon and imprisoned him before their eyes. So Yosef commanded that their vessels be filled with grain, that their money be returned to them, and that they receive provisions for their journey. So they went on their merry way. And when they stopped, one of them opened their bags and saw that their money had been returned to them. And they were like, wow, what has God done to us? So eventually they got back to Yaakov and, they told him that they got to Egypt and the Lord of the land wasn't very nice to them. And the guy thought that they were spies, and they tried to tell him they were honest people, but then they told Yaakov the whole situation, that one of them got stuck in prison and they have to bring back the youngest brother to him so he knows that they're all honest. And then, as they all emptied their bags, all of their money was on the table and they were terrified. So Yaakov is like, what is all of this mess that you have caused? Yosef is gone. Simeon is gone. Now you want to take Benjamin away from me as well? So then Reuben was like, okay, listen, put him in my care, and if I don't return him to you, you can kill two of my sons. And Yaakov was having all sorts of emotional reactions right now. So the famine was severe, and they finished eating everything that they had gotten from Egypt the first time. So Yaakov was like, okay, go back and buy us more food. And Judah is like, how? The viceroy literally said, don't come back here unless it's with your brother. Are you ready to hand him over? So Israel says, why did you hurt me by telling this man that you have another brother? And they were like, the guy literally wouldn't stop asking about us, about you, if we have other brothers. And so we responded accordingly. How were we supposed to know that he would want our brother? So Judah says to Israel, send him with me, let us go, and I will personally guarantee him. If I don't bring him back, I will have sinned to you for all time. And by the way, if we hadn't waited all this time, we could have come and gone twice by now. So Israel was like, okay, if this is the only way, then fine. Take the glory of the land as a tribute. Take double the money in addition to the money that was returned with you. Maybe it was an oversight. Take your brother, and may El Shaddai grant you mercy. So the boys did what he said, and they headed back to Egypt. So when they were on their way, Yosef saw Benjamin with them, and he had a meal prepared for them. So the brothers were brought to Yosef's house, and they were afraid that somehow there was going to be this story made up about them being thieves because the money that they found in their bags. So they walked up to the man in charge of Yosef's house, and they explained to him that when they left the first time, they saw the money in their bags and they had absolutely no idea who put it in there. So they brought it back. And the guy in charge of the house was like, all good guys, your God and the God of your fathers left you a gift in your bag. And then he brings Simeon out. So he took them all into Joseph's house. He gave them water to wash their feet, to feed their donkeys, and they prepared their tribute for Joseph. So then Joseph arrives, and they brought him their tribute. They prostrated themselves, and he asked about their welfare and also about the welfare of their father. And they said, our father is alive and he's at peace. And then Joseph looks up and he saw Benjamin. And he asked if this was the youngest brother. And so he said to Benjamin, God be gracious to you, my son. And then Joseph became a little bit emotional, so he rushed out of the room to cry a little, washed his face, and then he returned. They served food to him separately, his brother separately, and then to the Egyptians separately, because apparently the Egyptians loathed eating with the Hebrews. They all sat in order according to their age, and they all had their portions placed in front of them, except Benjamin had 5 times as much as everyone else. And so they drank and they became intoxicated and they were just having a great old time. So Yosef tells the guy who's in charge of the house to fill their bags with as much food and money as possible. And he told them to place a silver goblet in the youngest one's bag. So the dawn comes and the men were sent off and they left the city. So Yosef told the guy in charge of his house to chase after them and to say to them, why do you repay evil for good? Isn't this my master's silver goblet? And so the brothers responded like, "What are you even talking about? Why would we do that? We literally brought you back the money we found. How could we steal from Yosef? Whoever has it should die, and then we'll become slaves. Whoever it is that has the silver goblet is going to be my slave, but the rest of you can go." So they all emptied their bags, and lo and behold, the goblet was found with Benjamin. So they all go back to Joseph's house, and Joseph was like, "What have you done? Don't you know that I practice divination?" So Judah was like, "I don't know what to tell you, man. God uncovered our sin, so we're ready to be slaves." So Joseph was like, "Nah, it wouldn't really be cool for me to enslave all of you, only the one who had the silver goblet. So the rest of you can go in peace to your father." And this is where our story ends. So we start off learning that we are now 2 years later, 2 years after Yosef had the initial dream interpretations, 2 years after he asked to be remembered and mentioned to Pharaoh. Why is two specifically significant? Two is separation. Many times when we enter a phase of separation, we feel pain. And it makes sense because separation feels like polarity. And polarity, masculine and feminine, seems to exist on opposite sides of a spectrum. But the thing that we forget is that they exist within the same line, within the same spectrum. Separation is not meant to make us feel apart. It's created so that we remember that we're together. So Yosef had the experience of the full light of the Creator when he shared the dream interpretations, and he has the separation to remind him of the unifying nature of his gift and his purpose. So now we get to the cows and the grains and the grains and the cows. And homesteading is definitely something that I support in 5786. Not that I have any green thumbs. Anyways, the Pharaoh is having these dreams. And what does he do? He calls a necromancer and a wise man. And unfortunately, they were not so good at their jobs. And we remember now that Pharaoh is told about Yosef, and so he beckons him. So Yosef shows up, and the Pharaoh was like, "So you're the guy that's going to interpret my dreams, right?" And Yosef says, "That is beyond me. It is God who will respond to your welfare." So why does this matter? Yosef never claimed that the interpretations came from his own understanding. This is ego. He instead chose to stand as an active physical vessel, allowing himself to be filled with light and to emanate that light. This is Hineni energy. In our lives, most of us need credit or a pat on the back or a blue ribbon or a trophy, validation, appeasement, or reassurance. This is all the ego seeking external needs for comfort. Your soul, your direct connection to the light of the Creator, doesn't need any of that because it is light itself. And this is exactly what Yosef is showing us here. So then Pharaoh explains the cow and the grains again, and Yosef says something simple but poignant. Yosef is basically like, "You got the same message twice because it's about to go down." In one of our previous episodes, I believe it was Noah, we discussed that most things can happen in 3 steps. First, we have the thought, which is related to the neshama. Then we have the preparation, the space in between, the ruach. And lastly, we have the physical action, the nefesh. So Yosef is like, first of all, you're more than halfway there, so you gotta get ready, prepare yourself, move forward. So now we have the imagery in both dreams of something that is lacking, taking from something that's abundant. But if we notice, Pharaoh said when the emaciated cows ate the fat cows, they looked just the same. So first of all, being emaciated is a state of lack, disconnection from the light, disconnection from the Creator. And when we take, it's for validation, appeasement, out of desperation. Our ego needs some sort of reactive interaction in order to feel full. And what happened when the emaciated cows ate the abundant cows? They got nothing out of it. When we do things from a place of lack, our ego feels momentarily satiated, but taking creates a cycle of needing to take in order to maintain that satiation. If you're always taking, it's because you always feel empty. Feeling empty is not the same thing as being empty, but the ego tells you that you are emaciated. The soul shows you that you are abundant. Are you a skinny cow or a fat cow? So then we know Yosef is like, we'll find someone wise and who has discernment for the job. And the Pharaoh was like, well, duh, it's you. So we're told that Yosef is 30 at this time, and he's also given a wife. So what's the connection? 30 reduces to 3. 3 is when the separation takes form and begins to reveal shape for the light to be able to come through. So Yosef is 30, and then we're told that his presence, his light, passes through the land of Egypt. We fast forward a bit, and Yosef has 2 sons, first Manasseh and then Ephraim. Manasseh means he who is able to forget limitations, forget pain, forget loss, forget what's been done to you, to release trauma and limiting emotions and beliefs that hold you back. Ephraim means fruitful. When we can let go of the things in our past that make us feel doubt or make us feel less than or unworthy or make us feel like we need to take, when we release our need to control, we release our emaciation, our lack, and we enter into fruitfulness. So then we have the famine, and Yosef opens the reserves and he starts selling everything. So now we go back to Yaakov and the 11 sons. And Yaakov is like, okay, boys, time to be men. Go to Egypt, get us some food so we don't die. But you're not going to take Benjamin. So the brothers get to Egypt and they're in front of Yosef and he recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. And why is that important? They never had any respect for him. They only saw him through the lenses of the ego, through envy, through taking. Remember, they threw him in the pit and they sold him because they felt that he had something that they didn't. And so they chose to get rid of him so they could feel better about themselves. When you're in a place of lack, a place of emaciation, a place of ego, you're not capable of connecting to your own soul. And if you're disconnected from your own soul, you don't functionally have the ability to connect to any other soul that you come into contact with. Anyways, we now have the weird situation where Yosef accuses them of being spies, and they were confused, and they were like, nah, dude, we're not spies. We're just trying to save our family from dying. So then Yosef tells them to bring their other brother. And Yosef says, do this and live. I fear God. Now, this is something that we've spoken about before, this whole fear word, and it is an astronomical mistranslation. The word in Torah is yirah. It has been mistranslated as fear many times and again throughout Torah. However, it means awe. And why is that significant? Fear implies danger, that there's something that we need to be afraid of, some scary thing that's just waiting for us to mess up so that judgment, another mistranslation, can be taken. Fear is anxiety. Fear is constriction. Fear is Mitzrayim. And fear is not the creator. Yirah is awe, fascination, admiration, openness, expansiveness. It's breathtaking. When your breath is taken, you now have space to receive the Ruach from the Creator, which is exactly what precedes creation. Anyways, the brothers start talking amongst each other, and they were basically like, we have all this guilt from what we did to our brother, and when he had anguish, and we just didn't give one hoot about him, and now we have the same anguish. This is showing us how the cycle works, how energy works in this realm. Some people call it karma. Some people call it a boomerang. Some people call it Newton's third law of motion. The Creator calls it divine balance. What you release must return to you. The details of the situation might be different, The circumstances might be different. It might not even be in this lifetime that you receive the balance. Your soul holds the imprint of your individual balance ledger, your soul's tikkun. So Yosef knew that what they were saying, and his emotions bubbled up, and he excused himself to go cry a little. And when he came back, he kept Simeon, and he sent them on their way, but he gave them their money back. And then when they realized, they were like, wow, God, what did you do to us? How many times in your life have you had some sort of experience that made you feel not so good, but you still received something from it? And then you look at the Creator and you pout and you're like, why me? Why'd you do this to me? It's such a great lesson in gratitude. But when you're emaciated and when you come from a state of lack, you aren't even capable of recognizing this. So now we're back with Yaakov, and they have to give him all of the bad news. And Yaakov has just about had it with these guys. And he was like, you are not taking my last son. So eventually they finished all the food that they had gotten the last time they were in Egypt. And Yaakov was like, okay, you guys got to go back and get more. And they were like, oh, okay, so you're ready to give up Benjamin now? And so eventually he caved when Judah spoke to Israel. And we have something interesting happen. Typically, the Creator is referred to as Hashem, or God, Elohim. But this is the second time so far in the whole Torah that we've heard the name El Shaddai. El Shaddai means God who fulfills all needs. The first time we heard this was just after Yaakov's sons took things into their own hands to redeem Dinah after she was violated. And Yaakov asked them to give up their idols, and Yaakov made an altar, and then the Creator came to him and said, your name is Israel, and I am El Shaddai, be fruitful and multiply. Now we're hearing it again when Israel has to give up his control over the outcome of what happens to Benjamin. Benjamin is the son of blessings. We don't only idolize physical objects in our reality. One of the biggest idolizations people struggle with in this world is control. So in both instances, when we are shown idolization, we're given a distinct and stark reminder of El Shaddai. Our Creator is always providing everything. In both of these instances also, El Shaddai is in relation to Israel. Now we know consciously that Yaakov became Israel, so Israel must be Yaakov. But clearly there's a distinction here. Remember, Yaakov is a reminder that we are in a constant state of going up and down the ladder, being in the physical world, Yaakov, and being in the world of our soul, elevated consciousness, heaven, which is Israel. When we step into our soul, when we choose to be the vessel for light, Hineni, we automatically show that connection to El Shaddai. We already understand it. So we fast forward and we're back at Yosef's, and the brothers are apologizing to the guy in charge at Yosef's house because they thought they had money they weren't supposed to have. And how many times do you feel guilt or unworthiness when you receive? We fast forward some more and we have them eating dinner. And we're told that Yosef is separated from his brothers and that they're all separated from the Egyptians because they don't like to eat with the Hebrews. Some might call this racism. Why does it matter that they eat separately? The body is the vessel. Food is consumed by the vessel. For consumption, porosity must happen, not only physically, but also energetically. Hebrew, or ivri, means those who have crossed over. Crossed over what? Egypt is Mitzrayim. Those from Mitzrayim are constricted, stuck in separation, unable to see unity. Energetically, these two things do not mix. Ivri is open, expansive, abundant. Mitzrayim is closed, constricted, lacking, taking. When you are open energetically and you are around energetically open people, there is a clean cycle of giving, which means there's automatically a clean cycle of receiving. When you mix open energy with lacking or taking energy, There is no divine balance. Anyways, we're going to fast forward a little, and Yosef tells the guy in charge to put the silver goblet into Benjamin's bag. And then we have the whole story of them finding out. And then because Benjamin had it, he's now going to stay with Yosef. So some might say, wow, Yosef is really deceptive, trying to manipulate Benjamin into being with him. However, Yosef has divinity within him. He knows Benjamin, son of blessings, needs to be nurtured in the ways of abundance, inner knowing, soul embodying as opposed to egoic taking. Mikeitz seems like this convoluted story, but is it? One of the biggest themes throughout the whole Parsha is embodiment. We started with separation, and you can choose to see separation as difference, removal, or lack. Or you can choose to understand that separation is leaving an opening for ruach, breath. Breath leads you to understanding and perspective. Perspective allows you to step into embodiment. When you have embodiment through perspective, your soul is given exactly what the Creator intended us to have: free will. What you do with that free will communicates to you whether you are ready to be manaseh and release your past, feel the ruach, which allows Ephraim, or if you will continue to live as an emaciated cow. Throughout this whole parasha, Yosef could have chosen to be that emaciated cow and to be angry and stuck in the past, reminded of everything that was taken from him. He could have chosen to keep taking as well because that's what was done to him. But this is constriction. Instead, he chose to forgive, to give grace, and to leave himself open to receive, even when he knew that nobody deserved it. This is to be Hineni. This is to step into Israel and to have El Shaddai consciousness. When we limit ourselves, we're stuck in separation. We're stuck in not understanding that the Creator is always providing for us, whether we know the plan or not. Separation is only a singular part of the process. But when we get stuck there, we're stuck in this cycle of emptiness. When we release, we choose Ruach. Ruach is Hineni. Ruach is Emunah. Ruach is free will. And when we choose free will, we choose exactly what the Creator wants for us: alignment. Alignment leads to light, and light is always abundant. So going into this week, consciously choose separation, because as Yosef taught us, separation is the direct step towards creating the space to receive. We'll see you on the next one.